just say this right off and put the camera on me. Marijuana is good. God created the bush. And God said in Genesis, everything he made is good. And everybody in this room takes drugs. But there's such a thing as abnormal use. The word is abuse. The reason why we use the term abuse is because there is a use for everything, including games.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the latest installment of And Sarah Appeared. My name is Sarah, and I'm appearing before you today because I had a bit of a deep dive that I wanted to do into a topic that's been going up in smoke recently. It is cannabis and the church, and a lot of people are up in arms because they're like, cannabis has no place in the church. Well, me being from California, the West Coast, which is one of the best coasts, I have a different perspective on it. And I was an avid cannabis connoisseur for some time, okay? I no longer partake in it. I do have relatives that partake, but I have a no judgment zone. And I'm going to go into that real quick. The reason why it was essential for me to be delivered from the abuse of cannabis is because I was doing exactly that. I was abusing this herb. You know, when you are partaking in the use of this herb, I believe that it should be for sacrament uses or medicinal uses. There's more than one way to use this herb as well. Not everything has to be in the form of flowers. Some things can be in the form of edibles. Some things can be in the form of tincture. Some things can be in the form of a balm. And, you know, some things can be a form of, you know, a vape. So not everything has to be just flower based and everything like that. There are a lot of products, a lot of inventions, a lot of things out there that are, cannabinoid infused, even cooking, you know, even there are drinks that are cannabinoid infused that have the same great effect, but leaves out that stigmatism and that feeling of, ooh, I'm doing something that's wrong. And the reason why technology is able to advance in that area for cannabinoid users is because there are people who do really use it for medicinal reasons. Coming out of the Medicare Advantage realm, when I was working for insurance way back when, coming out of that sector, you would be astonished how many middle-aged individuals between 35 and like 52 years old were everyday individuals working either in private sector or working for construction companies, blue collar, white collar workers who wanted to wing themselves off of any kind of opioids because one, the opioids were making them sicker from the use, because of the injuries that they suffered while they were on their jobs, or just injuries that they suffered unfortunately due to like car accidents. They would call in and it would be the same problem. My PCP can only prescribe me a certain amount of opioids. I need more than the quantity that is allowed. I cannot go to a PCP and a specialist to get this type of medication because the state is regulating the distribution of the opioid medication, which also is making me sicker, making me nauseous. It's wearing off. It's making me very sleepy, tired. I have kids. I have things to do. Even though I may not be in the same field that I was working in, I still want to have a life. I don't want to feel like a zombie. And I definitely don't want to have the addicting factors that come with that type of use. So a lot of individuals had to transition out of using opiates to cure the pain, the chronic pain that they were experiencing, to using cannabis-based balms, tinctures, cannabis-based flower, any kind of cannabis based, products. They were using it to not only alleviate their pain, but also be able to live a normal, healthy, functioning life. People were gaining healthy weight again. People were able to stay up longer for hours to be able to function and operate, their vehicle. They would, wake up early in the morning, take their herbal medicinal, and then they would be able to walk their kids outside to, get on the school bus, take a nap, get up, do some chores around the house, and then after it weared out of their system, go and pick their kids up from the school bus stop again, and then later on that night, maybe go and pick up dinner for the family, a dinner that they were actually able to enjoy because they were not constantly vomiting or constantly, being, losing appetite because of the medication side effect that they were on with the opioids. So with that being said, also in California, there are a lot of young children who are born with autism, who are born with ADHD and ADD. And this natural herb that was given to us from God has been able to alleviate a lot of symptoms for young children. There are parents who are just elated with the progress that they have seen, because it's not one thing to just be able to deal with a mental limitation that does not allow you to function at the highest capacity that others do, and then it affects your emotional capabilities as well. But now your body is being affected because your brain also functions some of the mobility of the body. So now you've got issues as a parent where you're literally responding and juggling to various symptoms in your child. Cannabis has also been a progressive medicinal herb for people who have advanced chronic illnesses such as cancer or multiple sclerosis. So cannabis can help a lot of people out with a lot of different issues, and it can help them avoid some of the effects of more severe medications, which all medication is a poison, right? With that being said, testimony time. 2019 hit, and my superhero, the matriarch of my family, my father's mother who raised me, she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and dementia. And when I took her to her neurologist, mind you, and I have characteristics of my grandma, but my grandmama, she was a very proud woman, and my grandmother was very independent. And my grandmother, she had two young boys that she had raised, while her husband was overseas fighting in the war. And by the time he came back, he was completely debilitated. And he came out of the war and went straight into the hospital and stayed in the hospital for almost over a decade. My grandmother continued to take care of her two young children. And while her husband was in and out of the hospital, she somehow had two more children by him. So my grandparents were together for a very, very long time. Till death did they part, right? So with that being said, my grandfather transitioned 5 years before my grandmother did. And my grandmother, she did not want anyone to have to take care of her, but it came to the point where she was having a tremor in her hand so bad that it was uncontrollably shaking like this. And I knew at that point, I'm going to have to take over and I'm going to have to take her to a specialist. So, because she started to trust. She had no choice. She trusted me because I was the one that was always checking on her, making sure she had what she needed. We didn't live together at that moment, but eventually we ended up living together, because I had to take care of her full time. And so with that, the day that I make her the neurologist appointment, the neurologist diagnoses her with stage 4 Parkinson's, and also like stage 2 at that time, dementia, and then it progressed. With that, we immediately started talking about plans with estate planning for her, medical wise, as far as I had to be over everything and sign a bunch of documents and stuff because she was no longer going to be capable. With that, I had to also immediately start her on medication. My grandmother always had diabetes type 2 since I was born. So with that being said, I always grew up knowing that she had diabetes, but I didn't know that for years she was always on a diabetic medication called metformin, and it was an appetite suppressant as well, because even though my grandmother was a very small framed woman, she had always, I think at her heaviest, was like 140 at her heaviest. But my grandmother never got anything over like 110 pounds. Very petite woman, but had diabetes nonetheless. So I knew something was wrong also because of her Parkinson's and dementia that she was hiding from the family. She was forgetting to eat, and she had dropped down to like 89 pounds. And because she was also on metformin, her appetite was suppressed, so she didn't really want to eat anyways. So get her on the sundowning medication, and it was horrible. The sundowning medication caused my grandmother to have screaming rages in the middle of the night. My grandmother would not settle down. She was constantly hallucinating and seeing people and seeing things and asking about people. And I was working full time, couldn't get any rest, was taking care of her, and I just really was stressed out at that moment. Talked to her doctor, and then was looking up some alternative methods, and came across the process of, having edibles. And so I talked to her doctor about it. I was like, I absolutely have to get her off of whatever this medication is, because it is ruining her. It's she's deteriorating, and I can't do that, and I can't bear to see her like that either. It's not advancing her. It's not doing anything better. Fast forward, we get a regimen going down, and we also get a liquid medication that she could take, that would help with her appetite. But I also consulted and talked to her medical specialist and talked to him about, incorporating edibles that were cannabis, THC infused into her routine, because my grandmother, also with Parkinson's, was dealing with pains in her legs, pains in her joints, in her body, and I would be massaging her down for hours, and it was quite exhausting, and I wanted to also just alleviate her and give her some normalcy. This is a condition where the adult is reverting back to childhood. So the woman I once called mama was now in disposable diapers that I had to change for her, and she was calling me mama, and I was tucking her in and combing her hair and, making sure that she was comfortable and she felt secure. And it was the biggest honor that I had to do that for her, because at one point in my life, she did it for me. So going to the dispensary, I was scared. I was like, God forgive me, this and this and that. And I went into the dispensary. I had to do something to alleviate her stress. And it was so comforting and inviting. The people were very educational, very responsive to my needs, and really reassured me that, this would be the best approach. Walked me through the different types of products that they had, walked me through, the different side effects that each strain contained, educated me, even though I did have Google and different things between the difference between the THC and the non-THC and all that, and just really like THC and CBD, excuse me, and just really like helped me. And so I was able to not only alleviate my grandmother's pain symptoms in her body, her mood had drastically changed, where she was less anxiety prone and had stopped trying to leave and go out the door of our home. That actually lessened up. She had stopped doing that. And also her appetite increased to where I was able to get her to gain 25 pounds. So my grandmother went from 89 pounds, to 25 plus. And it was just, God really came in and blessed me. My grandmother was able to get into a daycare program. The daycare program was amazing because it was a program called pews, and it was centered around adults who had Parkinson's, dementia, and Alzheimer's. And I paid for my grandmother to be there from 7 a.m. in the morning until 1 p.m. in the afternoon, so that she could be, and after the cannabis use, she was able to be like literally introduced and around other individuals who had the same issues as her, but her behavioral issues had lessened drastically because of the use of the cannabis. And she was able to socialize again, make friends again. She would stop fighting my brother to get in the car with him in the afternoon when he went to pick her up after college. Like, it was, smooth sailing. So everybody has their own convictions when it comes down to it. I'm going to read a little bit of an excerpt because your girl's nosy, and I had to get down into the nitty gritty of it. So I love the thing I love about the cannabis culture is they have their own platforms. And I had to like go back into some of the old platforms that I used to constantly read and look through. I love Vice TV. Shout out to Vice TV on YouTube. I suggest that you go to Vice TV and you check out their August 2018 mini documentary. And there's also on Hulu, for those who have Hulu, a show called Weed Etiquette. And the episode of the show that I'm going to give the synopsis to is Going Legit. So I saw the whole entire documentary. I'm just going to read you the synopsis to give you a perspective. But in 2016, Vice met business partners in Atlanta who had a dream of getting into the legal weed business, but couldn't see a way to take their illegal grow off the streets. 2 years later, the entrepreneurs, Felix and Kingston, are now running Gas House, a successful legal weed company in Oakland, whose products are sold in dispensaries across California. In an industry home to a small number of black business owners, Felix and Kingston have become pioneers, inspiring others to leave the underground market behind. Vice met up with the duo to learn more about how they market their products and the legal requirements they had to meet to transition from the black market to an above board operation. Then we talked with dispensary owners, locals, and cannabis entrepreneurs about the access and inclusion gaps in California's legal weed industry and what companies like Gas House are doing to close them. So, Gas House is a black operated, black owned, and they don't have just black people, but they have like black and brown people and white people board of administrations. But it's a black owned business that is in Oakland, California, that also is a part of its own entity in the world of cannabis. And black and Latinos, honestly, because we're the most incarcerated group that has gone to jail and actually had like hard time sentences for this medicinal herb that literally has, not you don't really hear people of overdosing on cannabis. You don't really hear people of, dying, because of cannabis or anything, or being unalived for YouTube because of cannabis. But with that being said, it's a part of personal conviction. I just want to like state this. These young entrepreneurs, they started from nothing with being underground and obviously selling illegally in the Atlanta, Georgia area, to coming to Oakland, California and amassing to a $40 million enterprise. Not only did that create generational wealth for those families, but it also created jobs for other people who didn't want the conventional 9 to 5, or who had the expertise already to know about the plant or to know about the industry, knew how to market, had their own, talents that they could contribute to these enterprises. I'm just saying, in order for the church to influence the culture, we're going to have to stop boxing God into just this one-dimensional gamut. I had that issue, and I'm growing through and up out of that issue. And I think it's easier for me because I was an avid cannabis user. Well, I wasn't a user, I was an abuser. Let me tell you, I was an avid cannabis abuser. I was not a user, I was an abuser, baby. And so with that being said, because God had to educate me on the fact that you're in idolatry by abusing it, it's not a sin, but the way that you're doing this and going about it is not right towards me. So he had to sit me in the corner and put the dunce cap on my head because I didn't know how to act when it came to the use of this medicinal herb. With that being said, everybody is different, and I believe that it should be used in the form of a sacrament or in the form to alleviate any symptoms stemming from a medical issue. I do not believe that it is something that will send you to hell. Me personally, I still look at it like, if I have a relative right today, God forbid, and my relative was down with a chronic illness, I know exactly where I'm going. I have no shame. I'm strong enough in my convictions now where I will go and purchase what my relative needs in order to treat their issue. For me, but I live in California too. So at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the sentence, I don't look at it like how everybody else looks at it. California don't look at it as no sin. We look at it as a cash crop, okay? We look at it as a startup business, okay? So with that being said, I hope everybody is able to be respectable of each other's opinions, y'all. I know what it's like when you don't partake in something somebody else does partake in, and they feel some type of way because they feel like your lifestyle and your personal convictions are judging them. Not so. Let's normalize having healthy conversations that are centered around progress and not just centered around pointing fingers. We have to be able to be progressive. We got to be able to evolve. We got to be able to admit when we get it wrong. And we got to be able to stand 10 toes down when we believe that we are standing for the truth. So with that being said, whether you're on the side of pro-cannabis or whether you're on the side of ban cannabis, let's all be respectful. Let's hear each other out. Let's pray for one another. And with that being said, let's stand in our own convictions and let God lead us as we should. Bye for now.